Hi, my name's Jonathan Pickup. Welcome to Module 1, an introduction to Vectorworks. In this module, we will learn how to work with the Vectorworks interface, learn how to control selection and snapping, learn how to control graphics, and we will learn how to place text and dimensions. We'll start with Lesson 1.1, the Vectorworks interface. In this lesson, you will learn how to navigate around the Vectorworks interface. You will learn how to access tools and palettes. You will learn how to set up the required units. You will learn how to set up the page areas for printing, and you will learn how to create basic objects. Let's get started. Let's get started by looking at our basic Vectorworks interface. Now, before we go too far, I'd like you to check something for me, please. Tools on the menu bar, workspaces, and I'd like everyone to change to fundamentals. Now, the reason I want you to change to the fundamentals workspace is that it has most of the tools that we need, but it also has a very simple interface. And it's just going to allow everybody to see the same thing. I know you might be from an industry where you might use Architect or you might use Landmark, but for this part of the exercises, could you please change just to fundamentals? So it's just changing it there. Now, once you've changed the fundamentals, you'll notice that all your tools go away and they all come back in a slightly different order. So what's this all about? If we have a look here, at the top of the screen, we've got File, Edit, View, Modify, Model, and so on. So File and Edit are the standard menu items on just about every program. I was going to say every CAD program, but really even things like Photoshop, your email program, it's standard. So let's just have a look. File, and we have New. This is for creating a new file, for opening an existing file, for opening files you've previously had open, for closing a file, saving, save as, and so on. Now you might notice that some of these commands have three little dots, these three here. These three dots are called ellipses, and whenever you see those three dots, there's going to be a dialog box. So if I go File, New, I can create a blank document, which is what I'm using right now, or you can use a document template, which I'm not going to talk about. Cancel that. So at the top of the screen, we have the menu bar. These are menu items. They have the three dots if there's a dialog box. Sometimes there is a submenu like this. These are the keyboard shortcuts. Sometimes you'll find that one of these has a tick, this one here, so that's the option that's selected. If you want to choose a different one, just click on a different one and it'll choose that option. If you have a look here, you'll notice that some of these are grayed out. The reason they're grayed out is you haven't got the right stuff selected or it's inappropriate, so they're locked. That's what the gray means, is that you can't get access to them. So this is the menu bar at the top. Directly under the menu bar, we've got the title block of my drawing. So it's using Vectorworks Designer. The file is called Untitled 1, and then I've got a series of tabs. So I can have my different drawings stored in tabs, and I can click along each tab and move to each drawing. If I grab hold of the tab, I can grab hold of that and I can pull that out. I'm going to put it back now. So I can pull that drawing out and I can stick it onto another screen. So what are these things here? These are my previous view, next view. This opens my classes dialog box, which we'll talk about later. This is my active class. This will open my layers dialog box. That's my active layer. This allows me to look at my working plane, and we'll talk about working plane some other time. This is my active plane, saved views, fit to page area. Now this is one that you should really write down because you're going to use this one a lot, along with this one here, the fit to objects. These two you'll use whenever you want to zoom into a selected object or to your page area. This is my zoom ratio, so we can zoom in. And I can click on that or click on this one again to zoom out. If I had an object selected, this one would have zoomed me out to that object. This one fits me to my page area, which is this area here. I don't want to talk about these two just at the moment, but this is my top plan view. So I'm in top plan view or I'm in top, front. These are my active views. So for a lot of what we're doing to start with, we'll stay in top plan. I can rotate my view. That's what this button here is for. This is for when I've got a building. When we do Module 4 and we look at our buildings, we'll use this one a lot, the unified view. We've got this one here, the multiple view panes. This is for setting up multiple views. When I click on it, it will divide my drawing up into multiple view panes. So it's the same drawing, but I can look at it from the top, from the front, from the right, or from the right isometric here. Turn that off. This is my current projection, 2D plan. This is my rendering tab, so if I want to change to OpenGL or hidden line rendering or create a rendered view, I'd change it there. And as I explained earlier, these are my options. So underneath that area, this is this area here called the toolbar. Just have a look at this toolbar here. I can choose a different option. These are options for using a tool. If I choose my line tool, I'll get different options. The rectangle tool, I'll get different options. Circle tool, even more options. So what you'll notice is that this area changes depending on the tool you've got selected. So the trick is to choose the tool first, have a look at your options, make sure you've got the right ones. We have our quick preferences, zoom line thickness, data bar options, default 3D render, and this allows us to choose what quick preferences we see there. You might want to have auto join walls turned on, you might want to have this one here turned on, and I also like show clip cube. So when I get to the right point, I'll show what those are for. We might not want to have the data bar options, we might not want to have the default render mode, and we may not want to have the 3D projection. So that'll just clean that up a little bit. These are really useful, these ones that I've got highlighted here. This one here, the zoom line thickness, it helps me to see what lines are thicker as I zoom in. So that's covered quite a lot. The view bar across the top here, the toolbar across here, preferences for the view bar there, and preferences for the quick preferences there. So what's next? Over on the left hand side here, we have the basic tool palette. The basic tool palette has all of your basic 2D tools. Copying, moving, just make that a little bit wider. So we can create things, we can copy things, we can modify things, we can reshape things, we can offset things, and so on. Now there's an exercise in chapter 3 where you'll go through all of these in detail. Here's my tool sets for dimensioning, for creating title blocks, putting labels on, and the idea down here is that we've got 3D tools, visualization tools, annotation tools, and detailing tools there. So what happens, where are these palettes? These are palettes, where are they stored? And what happens if I lose one of them? So here are my palettes. I've got a snapping palette. I've got a snapping palette back again. So you'll see what happens is here we've got our palettes. There's my basic tool palette, and now it's gone. Basic tool palette, now it's back again. And you can just go to this little arrow between the two of them. That double-headed arrow means that you can slide that down so we can see all the tools. There's a little utility menu at the bottom here allowing you to sort the tools by icons or text. We can sort them, we can customize our workspace. This is my attributes palette. Controls the graphic style of things, the color, the fill, and we'll do an exercise on this later. So we use this to control the line weight, the line color, the fill, the color of the fill, and so on. Our snapping palette, we've got exercises to do on this as well. So these are the 4 snaps that are most useful. Snap to object, snap to angle, snap to intersection, and smart point. So these 4 are the most useful, so keep those turned on. And I showed you before, it's up there, snapping. If we click on that, it will turn off. If we click on it again, it'll come back on. And this is my resource manager. Now my resource manager is very powerful. I'm just going to click on that minus sign so that it stays open. There, now it's a plus, so it'll stay open now. Now I tend to put my resource manager up here, out of the way, and make sure that its size is like that, so it's out of the way. So I don't accidentally highlight the resource manager when it's up here. So the resource manager allows us to look for resources. So if we want to look for a rectangle, or we want to look for a detail, or something like that, we can click on that. And this is just one that I've done previously. What if we wanted to look for a bath? We want to look for a bath object, and it brings up all my bath objects, anything that's connected to the word bath. So we've got these baths, and this little arrow here, this is a little download arrow, means that this is not yet downloaded to my computer. If I want to use that, I double click on it, it will then download it. So we can choose to look for different sorts of resources. We can flip our layout, we can get rid of the file browser, bring it back, and so on. So just here where this magnifying glass is, when I click on that, it allows me to choose where I'm searching. Do I want to search everywhere? Do I just want to search in my visible groups? Do I want to select or just search through a selected file only? So this becomes very powerful in terms of looking for information. In my current file there is no bath. I don't think I have any favorites installed yet. We will look at favorites later. And I'm going to click on that again, and that'll make that auto hide. There it is, so it's auto hide. So when I go near it, it opens. When I go away, it closes again. And the reason I don't put that underneath this menu over here is every time I go to the menu, it would start to auto hide or become visible, and then when I go away, it would turn off again. This is my object info palette. When I create an object, it will appear in the object info palette, and I will be able to know the size, the shape, I'll be able to know the class, the layer, what plane it's drawn on, and we'll talk about planes when we talk about the 3D stuff. We can talk about we can change the size of it, and if I delete that, you'll notice it goes to no selection. So this is my object, there's my rectangle, there's my size. If I change that to 50, you'll notice it changed. This is in millimeters. If I change it to 50, it changes again. So this is what the object info palette is for. It's for having a look at the information about the object. If there are any options, this is where they'll be. We can look at data. We can actually attach data to objects. We can attach record formats, they're called. So if I attach a record to an object, later on I can report that. And we had the option to add a texture to some objects, but not to flat 3D things. Now we're going to have a look at this navigation palette in detail. I'll just bring it in here so you can see it. It has the ability to search through classes, through layers, sheet layers, viewports, and there is a lot of really valuable things. So I'm just going to dock this again. I just want that to highlight when I get to the bottom here. I want that to go blue, let go, and now that's docked. And I can bring that down to there, and I can stretch that across. So that's a basic introduction to the interface. But actually, just before we leave, there's a couple of things I wanted to show you. Just down in this corner here, I'm just going to highlight it with my cursor, just in this area here. You'll notice when I move my cursor in the drawing area that you can actually see where my cursor is. If I start drawing something, you can see what size it is, you can see the angle. And down here, it tells me what to do. For help, press F1. So sometimes you'll get an object, and it'll tell you exactly how to use that tool down here. So just look out for that. I think that covers most of the important things that you need to know just at the moment. So let's move on now and have a look at how do we set our units. File on the menu bar, document settings, and units. So here are my units. Now I like drawing in millimeters. Not everybody does, I understand that, but I like drawing in millimeters. I like to have my millimeters with decimal precision, and the decimal precision is not a tenth of a millimeter, but just 1 whole millimeter. This is what the 1 here means. And my decimal rounding base is 1 millimeter. I could round it to the nearest 5 millimeters if I was wanting to give pretty accurate dimensions, or I should say I want to draw roughly and give approximate dimensions. Decimal rounding base of 1 is very high quality dimensioning, but it means of course I have to draw accurately. I want my units to be square meters, cubic meters for volume, and degrees. If I like this, if I like these settings, I can save them. There we are, I've saved those as millimeters. Let's go back now and have a look. What if I wanted to use feet and inches? So there's my feet and inches. I want to have them as fractional. I want nearest eighth of an inch. This would probably want to be square feet and cubic yards. And now I can save that. So I can save this as feet and inches. Now if I pick up another job from another client who wants to use millimeters, I can choose millimeters and it just changes really quickly. Feet and inches changes those really quickly too. Now there is an option here to look at dual dimensions. That is, what is the other units that I might want to use. I'm just going to leave those alone for a minute. So I'm just going to stick with my dual dimensions, and for some movies I'll use millimeters, and for some movies I'll use feet and inches, and I'll try to give you the conversion between them. Let's click OK to that. So we've created our dimensions. The next thing for us to look at is our page setup. So let's go to the File on the menu bar. We'll come down here and we'll go to Page Setup, and let's look at our page setup. So you might be used to using inches. I'm used to using millimeters. We'll go to our printer setup, and I like to choose my actual printer. This is my actual printer. It's an A3 printer. So I'm going to choose A3 that way. And I like to have mine landscape mode rather than portrait. So this is roughly 17 by 11. It's not quite, because it's a metric size. And I'd like to have one page horizontal and one page vertical. Please be very careful about this. I know this size here is not exactly A4, but I'd like you to leave it whatever it gives it, because I don't want you to choose this one here, choose size unavailable. Don't do that. It'll stop this being 1 and 1, and you'll get some blank pages coming out of your printer. So set horizontal to 1, vertical to 1, and then OK. So that's created our page setup. Don't forget we've got here the fit to page area, so it'll zoom out. We'll see our entire page. And now we can start drawing. So I'd like to start drawing with the rectangle tool. So we can use the rectangle tool. I've just looked at this once before. We choose the tool first. We look at our mode. I want you to use the first mode. Click to start and click to finish. Go back to your object info palette. Make sure you're on the shape part of it. So shape there. What kind of object is this? Right here it tells me exactly what kind of object it is. It is a rectangle. Its class, its layer, and its plane, and its size. I'd like to change this to 2 inches. So let's put that in 50 millimeters or 2 inches. Hit the tab key once, and it goes down to the next part of this object info palette. Now you might notice that this side here came in. We'll make this 50. And tab, and now you notice that the bottom came up. So this corner here didn't move. Why not? It didn't move because these grid of 9 dots here, the one that's filled in black, this is my insertion or my box position. So you can think of it as your insertion point. Vectorworks actually calls it the box position, and when I click on it you'll notice these coordinates change. So I can make that 0, hit the tab key, make that 0, hit the tab key. So I can use the object info palette to change the size of the object, change the location of the object. So it's quite powerful. I could even, if I wanted to, change the rotation. So the object info palette is really powerful. Don't close it, keep it open, just buy a screen big enough so that you can see it. Now I want to create another rectangle. I'm going to use a slightly different method because I would like to show you 3 different ways of drawing rectangles. So I've shown you the first one. It's kind of slow, so we need a quicker way. Now before we use this quicker way, I want you to go to Window in the menu bar. I want you to choose the data bar options, and I want you to choose Allow numeric keypad entry for instant data bar activation, and I'll explain what the data bar is in a minute. Now on my keyboard I have a numeric keypad. It's the number key on the far right hand side. If you're on a Windows machine you might have to turn number lock on to make it work. So first of all I'm going to find the center of my first rectangle. So the word center comes up, click, come over here. I want this to be again 2 inches, so 50 millimeters. Notice typing in 50 millimeters gets me straight into the data bar. I don't have to hit the tab key, I'll just get straight in there with the numeric keypad. Tab, 50, plus 50 will take me up, so let's go plus 50. I actually want that to be minus 50, so tab, minus 50, and we come down. So how does it work? Going across this way is a positive dimension for X, going up is a positive dimension for Y, going down is a minus dimension for Y, and going to the left is a minus dimension for X. Now that I've typed that in, I can hit enter once, and it finishes my rectangle. So let's do that again, only slightly quicker. So I'll delete that, click, 50, tab, -50, enter once, enter again, and it's finished. It's really quick. So this is a great way of drawing with Vectorworks, to use that floating data bar so that you can see what you're typing, you can type in what you need, and it just creates the information you want when you want it at exactly the right place. Now the final trick I'd like to show you, or the final technique I should call it, is the rectangle tool where you double click. When you double click on the rectangle tool and several of the other tools, many tools in Vectorworks follow this. You double click on it, it opens up this create object dialog box, so you can say 2 inches that way, 2 inches that way, and I want to use that as my insertion point. Now if you turn off position at next click, you can actually type in the position that you want this to arrive at. So 0 and 0 on the for the X and the Y at that top left corner. So let's just have a look. Where's 0? There's my ruler at the top. There's 0. Come down. Let's have a look over here. 0 is there. So my top left corner will arrive right there in the center of my last rectangle. And you might notice that these objects are stacked one on top of the other. So you can't see very much of the bottom rectangle because it's hidden by the other two. This is called the stacking order. And in Vectorworks we can right click, send, and we can send this to the front or send it to back. So if I send that to the back, it goes behind all of them. If I bring it to the front, it goes in the front of all of them. Now send forward will bring it forward one object, which may or may not be the right answer. I often use send to front so that I know exactly where it is. It's right at the very front. Drag that, find the other rectangle, and OK. And you might notice that as I move around an object, I get snap points, top left, top center, top right, top center, top right, and so on. So Vectorworks is telling me all the time what it can see and where it's related to. This is the end of lesson 1.1. In this lesson you learned how to navigate around the Vectorworks interface, you learned how to access tools and palettes, you learned how to set up the required units, you learned how to set up the page areas for printing, and you learned how to create basic objects.